Welcome to Medrash Rabbah on the Parsha. We are here for Parshas Shoftim in Sefer Devarim. Here we have an introduction from a verse, a pasuk from the Sefer of Mishlei, from Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon. He says like this. He tells the lazy person, go to the ant and see its ways, and pay attention to a few details. Some details, says Shlomo HaMelech, is, for example, the fact that the ant, it prepares already 2 times a year. It prepares its foods. One at the beginning of the harvest, and one at the end of the summer. So says the Medrash asks a very simple question. What is unique about the ant that King Solomon, Shlomo HaMelech, wants to learn from to a lazy person? Seemingly, all animals, they do things to prepare for their food. What's unique about the ant? So the Medrash explains. Let's go into the science. Let's go into what goes on with the ant's life. The ants, the way they work is, they survive. There are three layers within the ground. You have the upper layer of the ground, which is closer to the earth. That could become wet due to rain sometimes. You have the lower layer, which is muddy. And then you have the middle layer, which is probably the driest. So that is where the ants store their food. Now, the Medrash says the ants, right, they go ahead and they store their foods 2 times of the year in that area in the ground. And continues the Medrash, now an ant, being that doesn't have veins or bones, it cannot survive more than 6 months. And it actually makes a general statement about creatures of the like. So it says the Medrash, if that's the case, this creature is not expected to live, right, these ants, more than 6 months. Point number 1. Point number 2, says the Medrash, an ant's life, which is 6 months, only requires the amount of food of a chita, a grain of wheat and a half. For its whole lifespan, that's all it needs, really, to survive. Says the Medrash, but nonetheless, when it comes to preparing for the winter, it just gathers everything it possibly can and stores it in the ground, even beyond a wheat and a half. So based on those 2 points, the Medrash says, why is the ant doing this? The ant's not even expected to survive more than 6 months, and only needs a wheat grain and a half to survive. Why is it doing all this prep for beyond its survival time? Because, right, it already prepared food from the beginning of the harvest season, which is pretty much 6 months till the winter. So why is it preparing again for the winter when it's basically going to die anytime soon? So says the Medrash, the reason is because the ant is hoping, even though it knows, or maybe senses even that it's going to die, nonetheless it's hoping that maybe God will give it grant it life beyond that, and therefore prepares for even that opportunity. Now, whether this is conscious or subconscious, or the way, what's ingrained into their nature, the Medrash says it's just quite an interesting factor that we can learn for ourselves. In other words, this is what Shlomo HaMelech was referring to when he said to a lazy person to learn from the ant. What can a lazy person learn from this ant based on this structure? Says the Medrash, that basically, look at what's going on over here. The ant, right, it's definitely not lazy, that's for sure. It's preparing way beyond its lifetime, right? And it's always working to prepare. But what's interesting for a lazy person to understand is why is a person lazy, right? A person is lazy because he's living in the moment. In other words, he's not thinking ahead. He wants what's easy, right? So right now, I'm comfortable, I'm good. Why do anything, right? I don't have to work hard as long as I'm surviving, right? In other words, he's only thinking about survival in the moment. That suffices for him. So says King Solomon, look at the ant, right? The ant doesn't, besides the fact that the ant is obviously taking care of its survival in the moment and even for the near future, it doesn't even suffice with that. It even thinks about way beyond even its own lifetime, possibly. or even the possibility that it might live longer. So this is not even a being with, right, intellect like us, right? So what you see from the ants is quite interesting. A lesson is perspective. If you're living only for the moment, so then yes, you will have that difficulty of working hard even beyond, pushing yourself a little further. But if you're living, you're thinking about what's going to happen in the future. You're thinking about the probabilities, the possibilities of living for something beyond yourself, right? Like the ant, which is thinking about living beyond its natural time span. That will actually put you in the right place, that laziness won't even hit you, right? You won't even come to that nisayon, to that test, that, okay, why not just be comfortable where I am right now? Because that's not where your mind is focused. Your mind is not thinking right now. Your mind is thinking way beyond. And therefore, it doesn't give you that possibility, right, to think, okay, I don't need to work hard today. It doesn't even put you in that mindset. So says the Medrash, that's exactly what a person has to think about. He has to think about his, so to speak, his Olam Haba. In other words, his perspective is not thinking about in the moment, how am I surviving in this world, right? What's enough for me today, right? He has to think about the bigger picture, the ultimate, right? If a person's mind's there, he will never come to laziness. And that's why Shalom Melech chose specifically the ant, because the ant thinks beyond its lifespan. Have a great week.